In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what is the scariest, creepiest or most unsettling experience of your life? This is going to get buried, but it happened a couple of days ago. Hope I'm not too late to the party. My stepmother died about a year ago. At home she had brain cancer. When she was alive, it was sort of part of her routine to feed the dogs. We have 2 of them, every morning. The dogs usually get their breakfast outside, because they like to play in the backyard if the weather is nice. Growing up, in the mornings I would always hear her whistle for the dogs, and then the sound of food being poured into the dishes. Since she passed, my younger brother has been feeding them in the morning before going to school. So maybe 4 days ago, I was in the bathroom getting ready for work, and I hear this super clear whistle and then what I thought was the sound of food being poured into a dish. It startled me because it sounded so much like her, but I figured it was my younger brother, and that it was so loud because the bathroom has a window that overlooks the backyard. Walking out of the bathroom I passed my little brother, who said, "Sorry, I'll go let the dogs out right now." Turns out they were still inside and hadn't been fed. Not that scary, but I think my stepmom was telling me the dogs were hungry. Not sure if this applies here, but I always remember that my granny's house where she grew up was haunted. This was way back 1920s rural Ireland. My granny came from a fairly well-off family, so they had quite a large old house. Apparently she would be in her bed with sisters, big families, so younger siblings would share beds back then, and all of a sudden the sheets would start dragging down off the bed, waking them. They'd hold on and pull back, but no matter how much they tried, the sheets would get ripped off the bed. I can remember it properly, but something would try to pull them out of the bed by their ankles, or it would shake the bed and terrify them. She would have told this to my mum, who told me when I was small, and she could have made it up, but I remember one time when visiting my granny, my mum took me to my granny's old house. It was completely abandoned and dilapidated, overgrown with parts of the roof fallen inwards. It was creepy to say the least. Not too sure on how much I believe in the paranormal and all that, but my mum as a joke told me there was a ghost in my granny's attic called a pookie or pucker, and that if I went into the attic it would eat me. Terrified me as a child. My husband and I, and our 2 kids, were on a camping road trip through the Canadian East Coast a few months ago. We took a ferry over to Grand Manon, which is an island off New Brunswick with a pop of about 2,500. We drove to the provincial park we would be staying at and set up camp at our site. It was very private with tall bushes sectioning the sites off. The park also wasn't very busy, as it was the last weekend it would be open for the season. After dinner it was getting dark, so we put the kids to bed in our trailer, and my husband and I decided to stay out by the campfire for a bit. I eventually had to pee, and our trailer, being an old pop-up, didn't have its own washroom, so I started towards the nearest outhouse. It was pitch black on the path, but I had a flashlight which lit things up pretty good. After passing by 2 campsites, both empty, a complete feeling of dread and terror hit me. It was a heavy feeling. My body was telling me not to go any further. I quickly tried to rationalize in my head about how stupid I was being. The outhouse was only 2 more campsites away, both empty as well, and I would be fine. I took one more step forward and the feeling became way stronger, and it was like I had hit a brick wall. I could not get myself to go any further. I swiped my flashlight around quickly, saw nothing, and ran back to our site. I told my husband what had happened, and surprisingly he didn't laugh at me. He told me that you never knew who could be hanging out around these parks, and it could have been my instinct alerting me that someone was lurking around somewhere. I calmed down, but I couldn't shake how strong that feeling of terror had been, so I decided to Google some more information about the island. Are there any ghosts? Right away a result came up for a pirate ghost that had been spotted over the years by many people and had even approached and spoken to people in the past. He was called the Long Pond Ghost, as he was almost always seen near or at the Long Pond. A quick Google map check showed us that Long Pond was directly behind the bushes that lined our site. I'm not sure if I was about to meet the Long Pond Ghost or not that night, but I will never forget the paralyzing terror that I felt there. One night I couldn't sleep, so I turned on the television and one of the most powerful nations on earth was considering electing a tangerine in a wig as their president. Have posted this before but it gave a few chills. So had fallen asleep around 9 p.m. and was awoken a little later by the sound of rumblings and glasses vibrating together. As I woke and lifted my head off the pillow, I saw what I believed to be my girlfriend's hands pull the walk-in closet door shut as if she'd shut herself inside. I mumbled, "What the fuck are you doing?" Just as I finished my sentence, she walked through our bedroom door from the hallway. I remember feeling confused and asked her what the hell was going on. She told me there was an earthquake. Still weary, I was all kinds of WTF. I eventually asked my other half, "So who just went in the closet?" "Don't say that." I jumped off the bed and opened the closet door. Nothing. Just a closet. Honestly, I'm by far very skeptical about supernatural happenings, but I still to this day logically can't explain what happened. I creeped myself out by asking if maybe the earthquake happened to wake me up and stop whatever was about to happen to me. Whatever was stood over me whilst I slept had to quickly escape. And I saw a glimpse of something I shouldn't. Shudders. I was at a friend's house and we were going to watch a movie and eat pizza. We opened the front door, took a left and immediately went to the basement. After about an hour, my friend asked me to order pizza. However, we couldn't find my phone. We called and called it while looking around the basement. We heard nothing, which was weird since my phone was on loud. After about 15 minutes we couldn't find it, so my friend suggested I may have laid it down on a table before we came down. It was unlikely since we literally came straight down. We gave it a shot though and went upstairs. We called and nothing. Went to look in the car and nothing again. When we opened the front door to the house, it hit the adjacent basement door that was now open. We both looked at each other because in order to get the front door open you have to close the basement door, and we did before coming in. We shrugged it off and called my phone one last time. It suddenly started ringing from the basement. We ran down to see it in the middle of the floor right next to the last step in the basement. It looked like it was placed there so I wouldn't miss it. There was no way we could have missed it or not heard it. We ran all the way back upstairs and out the door. We ate out that night. I was maybe 7 or 8. My bedroom was at the end of a hall, probably more doors than walls, and my bedroom door makes a corner with the bathroom door. On a late night bathroom trip, of course it's dark, but I see a box on the floor in the corner and hear breathing. I lean in closer to the box and the breathing gets louder. Never breaking eye contact with the box, I turn on a light, the sound stops and the corner is empty. Mom is an early sleeper, brother is a heavy sleeper, and dad was at work till 5 a.m. It's been 20 years and I still think about that breathing box. When my mother, who was mentally unstable at the time, went into a catatonic state and wouldn't respond, I opened her eyes, talked to her, and checked to see if she was breathing. She was very shallow and slowly though. I then proceeded to call 911 and get an ambulance on the way. She responded when they got there, and was acting like she was normal, therefore they couldn't take her to the hospital. My childhood home was haunted. Lots of weird stuff happened that my brother and just kinda accepted. Once when my brother and I were 7 or 8, we were in the kitchen drawing pictures with crayons. They were in a big butter tub with a flimsy plastic lid. My mom said she was going to shower, and to put the crayons away because we were going to dinner. She went upstairs, the water turned on, but my brother and I could not find the lid to the bucket. After a few minutes of looking I finally asked, "Did someone take it?" It then flew at us like someone had tossed a frisbee, and someone laughed hysterically. We were the only ones in the house and mom was in the shower. I once woke up, or did I? And saw a black cat with green eyes sitting on my bed. I blinked once and the cat vanished. I blinked again and an older chubby woman with long braids was standing over my bed looking at me and smiling. I could tell she wanted to talk but I refused to acknowledge its presence, so I shut my eyes and went back to bed. To this day I don't know what this meant, but I do know that it wasn't a dream because of the way I was thinking about and analyzing the situation. When I was little, my dad would hide under my bed when I was getting ready for bed. He'd wait until the lights were off and I was bed before he'd reach up and grab me and scream. Most terrifying thing ever. After learning about parallel worlds, knowing that a few versions of myself probably died on September 11, 2001, my godsisters and I had gone to NYC with our dads once that summer and had planned to go again once school started. Our second trip included breakfast at the Windows on the World restaurant. My grandfather had been one of the first business tenants when the towers opened in the 1970s, and my parents had gone and visited him and eaten there with him many times. The plan was to take the early train in and be there around 8, then do the Museum of Modern Art afterward. My one godsister had a test on Tuesday, so we decided to go Wednesday instead. From the time I was a little kid, every time we drove past or I saw them from the train, they filled me with dread. I would say creepy things like, "I don't like those buildings. They're creepy." My parents chalked it up to all the news coverage in 1993 from the bombing, when I was 6, and would tell me how my grandpa had rented there, and how many happy memories they had of the towers.